They called him Cub of No Roar, a name passed around like a joke, echoing through the halls of the Uratok training citadel. Eli never flinched at the sneers, never raised his voice. He was too small, too soft, too human. Everything the Uratok warriors despised, towering at twice his height, built like living tanks. They saw him as decoration, a novelty kept around for curiosity or convenience. Some believed he was a servant. Others weren't sure if he was a pet or a lab specimen, gone sentient. None of them saw him as anything close to a warrior. They made him carry the equipment none of them wanted to haul. They made him clean the grime off their armor after training, joke about how he might gain strength through osmosis. One trainee once dropped a chunk of raw protein meat into his ration tray and laughed when Eli calmly pushed it aside. The cub's stomach can't even digest honor, the brute said, and everyone within earshot bellowed with amusement. Eli didn't respond. He watched. He always watched. Eli noticed things they didn't. The way that Uratok's exoskeletal joints clicked twice when they were dehydrated. The tiny wobble in the footing of the eldest cadet after heavy gravity drills. The way the gravity field in one hallway had a millisecond stutter every 8th cycle. He never mentioned what he saw. He just stored it away. When the trial of clans was announced, the citadel erupted with excitement. It was a ceremonial test to prove a warrior's readiness for service, a brutal gauntlet of terrain, coordination, and endurance. It was mostly for show now, an echo of older, bloodier times, but still fiercely competitive. Eli's name appeared on the roster, not because he volunteered, but because someone entered him as a joke. Maybe it was Rusk, the loudest of his taunters, or maybe one of the instructors with a sense of cruel irony. It didn't matter. His name was there. The Uratok cadets roared with laughter when they saw it. Some bet on how quickly he'd be injured, or if he'd even make it past the Baco first checkpoint. He'll trip over the starting line, someone joked. Eli said nothing, as always. He accepted the issued gear and made no complaints when they gave him the oldest, most worn-out boots. No one offered to train with him. That was fine. He'd been training alone. There were no real friends for Eli in the Citadel. Some of the smaller species, like the feathered Enthi or the frog-eyed Silex, gave him occasional nods in the mess hall, but they kept their distance. Associating with him made you a target. Still, he observed how they moved, how they adapted. They too were considered weak. They survived through precision and cleverness, and Eli had paid close attention. On the night before the trial, Rusk passed by Eli's bunk and dropped a stone tablet with the words, "First to die," etched across it. Eli picked it up, looked at it, and calmly placed it beside his gear. He didn't need to roar. He just needed to show them why humans were never caged. The morning air was thick with anticipation. Gravity had been dialed up by 20% to simulate battlefield strain. Most contestants grunted and flexed through it. Eli moved quietly, adjusting to the weight like he'd done 100 times before in private drills. No one noticed. The trial of clans began with a sprint across fractured terrain under shifting light patterns designed to disorient. The Uratok charged ahead in a frenzy. Eli didn't rush, he paced himself. He knew they'd burn out fast. By the second checkpoint, 3 competitors had already dropped from muscle strain and 2 from missteps on unstable ground. Eli moved around the pitfalls with surgical care. He didn't beat anyone, but he didn't fall behind either. Some of the larger species began to notice his presence, how he maneuvered like he saw the ground move before it did. A Silex runner who had twisted their ankle tried to crawl forward. The Uratok laughed and passed them. Eli doubled back, helped lift the alien over a ridge, dragging them to the med zone with a torn shoulder. He lost time, but the medical drones noted his effort. By the third phase, a fog field rolled in, blinding and wet with acidic moisture. Most trainees pushed through in squads. Eli went in alone. He used a torn strip of cloth soaked in alkaline water to keep his vision clear, a trick no one else had thought of. He mapped the pattern of flashing guide lights ahead of time and moved through like he was following memory rather than sight. A group of onlookers in the control room leaned forward. They expected him to be lost by now. Instead, he emerged from the fog faster than most. A climbing section followed, vertical slabs of stone treated with an anti-friction coating. Eli didn't have claws or talons like the others. He had technique. He chalked his hands with dust from his earlier run, tied his belt into a loop for grip, and leveraged his core. It wasn't fast, but he didn't slip. Others twice his size slid down in frustration. He passed them. One tried to knock him off a ledge. He absorbed the hit, adjusted and kept going. No retaliation, just resolve. Near the end, the final stretch was a crawl beneath low-hanging razor brambles under simulated firelight and pulsing sirens, designed to break the weak through sensory overload. Eli dropped flat, slowed his breathing and moved with the rhythm of the siren, timing his movements to the quiet gaps. He exited the final gate bleeding, bruised, limping, but still walking. 13 finished the trial. Eli was the smallest, the slowest, and the only one who didn't quit when injured. The medics scanned his shoulder and found it dislocated. He'd completed half the trial in pain without a word. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't know what to do. A human wasn't supposed to finish. The silence was heavier than any mockery. Somewhere, high above, the Alpha watched the replay again, eyes narrowing at the boy who refused to break. Tharn, the Alpha of the Uratok, returned without fanfare. His arrival was not announced with horns or honor chants. He didn't need them. The moment his ship docked, the training grounds quieted. Even the instructors stiffened. Tharn had led planetary sieges, ripped machines in half with his bare hands, and once crushed a rebellion by stepping onto the battlefield, unarmored. He didn't attend trials. Ever. Until now, he demanded to see the human. Eli stood before him in the central chamber, still bandaged from the trial. He didn't bow, didn't speak first. Around them, Uratok soldiers lined the walls, tense and ready for the outburst that never came. Tharn studied the boy for a long moment, then spoke with a voice like cracking stone. "You dragged a Silex when your shoulder was already ruined." Eli nodded. "They needed help." "You could have left them." "I didn't." A silence followed, thick and sharp. Tharn grunted. "I've crushed warriors 3 times your size for less defiance. Why didn't you quit?" Eli's voice didn't waver. "Because someone wanted me to." That answer made Tharn laugh, a low, rumbling thing that startled the guards. Then he leaned down and locked eyes with Eli. "You remind me of someone." He didn't elaborate. Instead, he ordered Eli into a new trial, not of strength, but leadership. A mixed species unit, 4 cadets from 4 different cultures, each with conflicting tactics and philosophies. No weapons, minimal guidance, a simulated mission, navigate hostile terrain, retrieve an objective, extract all members alive. It was designed for failure. Eli met his team, an arrogant Uratok bruiser, a skittish Enthi scout, a stoic Silex technician, and a nervous Pyrax glide runner. They couldn't agree on anything. The Uratok wanted to smash through, the Pyrax wanted to run. The Enthi refused to leave the shadows. The Silex spoke in terse code. Eli didn't shout. He listened. He asked questions. He broke the mission into parts. Let each member use their strength on their terms. The Pyrax scouted ahead. The Silex hacked terrain data. The Enthi laid counter-distraction trails. The Uratok, furious but loyal to challenge, guarded the rear like a shield. No casualties. A Objective retrieved. Fastest time recorded in 5 years. Tharn. Watch from the command gallery, arms crossed. Afterward, when asked what magic he used to get them to listen, Eli just said, "I didn't try to lead. I tried to understand." The room was silent. Tharn stood, walked to the edge of the platform, and stared down at the small human who had just redefined victory in the eyes of the Uratok. For the first time in memory, an alpha didn't see a pet, or a novelty, or a cub without a roar. He saw a fire wrapped in silence, a mind that bent without breaking, a leader without a title, and Tharn knew, deep in the marrow of his ancient bones, that this was no ordinary human. This was something new, something dangerous, something worthy. The chamber was filled with warriors, counselors and spectators from a dozen species, each watching the ascension ceremony with growing unease. This was the moment the strongest of the cadets were elevated, granted marks of passage, offered positions in elite squadrons. Eli stood near the back, not expecting his name to be called. He didn't care. He'd done what he came to do, prove them wrong. Tharn stepped forward, towering and silent, the hall bowing to his presence. The ceremonial blade was in his hands, reserved, only for the right of kinship. It hadn't been used in decades. Eli didn't know that. The Alpha called forward the champions, marking them one by one. Formal, expected, forgettable. But when the list ended and Tharn paused, the room held its breath. Then he turned. Eli. The name rang like a challenge. Eli walked forward slowly. The crowd whispered. This wasn't in the order. No one had authorized it. The council shifted, in discomfort. A human had never been summoned to the front. Not once in recorded history. Tharn raised the blade. Kneel. Eli did. With the flat of the ceremonial steel, Tharn touched each shoulder, then pressed the blade to Eli's chest. Not to wound, but to mark. The blade hissed against the contact fabric, leaving a faint streak of thermal silver. I name you kin, Tharn said, by right of trial, blood, and fire. Gasps broke the silence. Several elders stood in protest. He is not Uratok. This is not our way. Tharn turned to face them. Then our way is broken. He raised his hand and silenced the room. He completed the trial with a broken body and a full heart. He led where others failed to listen. He stood when all expected him to crawl. Tell me what more you require. No one answered. Eli remained still. His face was unreadable, but the hall felt different now. He wasn't small anymore. He was something they couldn't define. Not pet, not joke, not background. He was now one of the Alpha's own. That changed everything. The Uratok cadets who mocked him before stepped aside when he walked past. Rusk looked away, jaw tight. The NT scout offered a subtle nod. The Selex technician tapped a claw against her chest, a sign of quiet respect. Even the Pyrax whispered something in their native tongue. The silence roars now. Across the stars the news spread. A human had been named kin by the strongest. Alpha alive. The galaxy didn't laugh anymore. They watched, carefully. An alliance once confident in humanity's insignificance now re-evaluated every encounter, every delegation, every whisper. Because if one small human could earn the loyalty of the Uratok Alpha, what might an entire species be capable of? Eli never asked for power. He just refused to be less, and that, in the end, made him more than any of them expected.